Ever wondered what it's like to have a fleet, get caught by the FBI, and marry a boat? You can in Azur Lane, one of the most generous gacha games I've ever played throughout these years. With its abundant roll currency, solid SSR roll chances of 7%, even higher than that of the already generous Nikkei, and the ability to earn literal SSR units from simply farming the maps in the main story, this game is a free player's dream. The story is that of anthropomorphized ships from the World War era, with all the relevant factions at war with one another, all while an unknown threat is looming beneath the sea, the sirens who threaten the world while the humans and ships are fighting amongst themselves. It's basically the Abyssals from At.I collection, but they're now a lot more yellow. Not the most original idea, but I guess for a non-Kankole player like myself, it's a pretty decent substitute. Combat involves going into maps with your enemies, battling enemy ships, and finding the boss once you've cleared enough smaller enemies. Each instance is a horizontal scrolling shooter game which does require a little bit of skill for harder maps to dodge hits, but it eventually does turn into a bullet hell with no places to dodge anyway, so trying to use your skills in dodging in Toho or whatnot will basically go right out of the window. The real game fortunately begins once you hit 100% completion on a map, where you unlock the ability to auto-battle, which does everything from fight the battles for you, move around the map, and even skip drop animations when you get new ships from maps. Yes, the low rarity ships do drop, including SSRs as well at times. The only time you really do need to touch the game by this point is when you finish the entire stage. I tell you, it's pointless to play a game if you don't play it, but I don't advise farming manually because this is only the very beginning of a very long time farming this game. Shipgirls don't level up with materials or using other shipgirls as enhancement material for anything apart from improving your skills. You actually have to put them into your sorties and train them up from level 1 from scratch, which is where the auto battle really does come in handy when the level takes ages to raise. Even though it does take a while to level up, there is always the joy of leveling up in the first place, especially if you level up your favorite shipgirls, and my favorite girl still has to be Hood, despite the fact she's canonically exploded at the very beginning of the game. If you already don't think the gameplay is much, you are totally right. It's mainly the wonderful cast of characters, their unique designs, and of course a story that honestly surpassed that of At.I collection when it was first released. Unlike Kankole, which only focuses mainly on the Japanese ships, Azur Lane boasts an entire cast of the German, British, Japanese, American, and even Russian and Chinese ships in the game, all with region-specific designs that feel much more unique than Kankole's fairly reserved clothing choices. Unfortunately though, the age of the game does show in the fact that not everyone has a live 2D model out of the box outside of the starting 4, which have honestly not aged very well since 2018. These models were seriously revolutionary at the time, but they've been surpassed by the many different live 2D skins in the shops for gems, which is where most of your gems will probably end up in this game if you ever do play it for a long period of time. The live 2D skins are the only skins I would hands down recommend to you to buy with your gems because the rest are probably not as worth it. There's also plenty of stuff to do outside of the gacha, like training units at base, researching units like Rune, and of course, furnishing a house with the free house tokens you get from missions, which was my favorite part of the entire game back in the past, seeing my chibi units running around the house that I've basically furnished. You can lift them up too and toss them into chairs, beds and whatnot, and I really do like house building, so this is a big plus. As for all the boat waifus that you've enjoyed a lot, sent them on sorties, and gotten all their affection raised high enough, you can even marry them. You can basically buy a wedding ring with the premium currency, and for my extra weeby self from years prior, it was the only other thing he spent money on in the game to get apart from skins. Not for rolls on the gacha, but basically cosmetics. There's really no limit as to how many shipgirls you can marry either, so you can marry as many of them as you want with zero consequences. And some of them even give fancy oath skins as well, so I'd give the rings to those who have skins unless you really enjoy niche characters, since most of the popular ones already have them anyway. Also, every character has a special voice line when you touch a certain spot on the character model too, which I will not show here for obvious reasons. As you can already tell, I've only ever spent on items like these after playing the game for a grand total of 2 years before quitting, and this is mainly due to the fact that Yoastar has been extremely generous with the cubes that you use for the gacha in weekly events, story quests, returning events, and sometimes it shows up in assignments, that one mechanic in every single gacha game where you send a bunch of units out for materials for a few hours and you get them as rewards from those. You really honestly never have to buy rolls on the gacha, since the only thing holding you back half the time is normally the in-game currency that is fully earnable in-game, which is basically the coins, and of course the oil that you use as stamina for running dungeons. I currently have enough oil accumulated from events and not playing the game to the point that the US would probably be very jealous of me, so that hasn't been much of an issue in terms of running maps. Dismantling SI units even gives medals that can be traded in for more SSRs as well, so you know the game is extremely free to play friendly when you can trade in your terrible gacha luck for SSRs. Still though, for the more veteran players, as you can tell based on my lack of recent units, that this account of mine is 4 years old and counting. It's a bit like opening a time capsule, seeing that my last login was back in 2019 and opening it in 2023 really feels like a fever dream. My characters are very clearly ancient, and a lot of my event characters have gotten so old that the game's rerunning them permanently now in the war archives, which works for me because I don't play the game very much. Returning to Azur Lane feels like I've gone back in time to when I used to play this game at my late grandmother's house before I quit the game. I'll always remember the number of times I got jump scared by
Azur Lane.
when I started up the game and forgot to mute it with my grandparents looking at me very confused. Funny enough, Azur Lane is actually the second gacha game I ever played after Fate Grand Order, and I still think it's a very decent game even after being away for so long. A fair bit of it is the nostalgia talking though, but the joy of training up your favorite shipgirls, getting SSRs at one of the most generous rates ever, even farming for SSRs, and getting all the story from all these characters as well, are definitely what makes this game great. If I were to give this game a serious verdict, it's about a decent 8 out of 10. The mechanics may feel initially dated compared to most other games this day and age, but the generous gacha and the farming aspects of this game make it akin to one of those idle games that you have on the side and watch your little shipgirls fly around the screen. But don't worry, Azur Lane, as far as nostalgia goes, you will always be a 10 out of 10 for me. Thank you for the memories, Yostar, and all I have to say is, unfortunately, you are number 2, because Sandy is number 1. And as always, stay safe, stay humble, and stay cultured, my fellow Shikikan. This is the Annie Night, and we will see you next time. Also, do let me know if there's any other games that you would like me to review, especially gacha games, because I am taking an interest in those, of course.